Good morning, children. How are you? And welcome back in your English class. And children, as you know that we have, first of all, I want to say something very fresh good morning. And I hope that you all are feeling very happy and very enthusiastic and full of new positive thoughts. Children, let's start the day with some beautiful dreams and some beautiful aspirations in your life and some beautiful aims and some epitomes of hard work which you are going to do in your life, and also some hope to get success in your life. So let's begin the day with all these positive thoughts. So children, as you know that, let's come to the point of chapters. Children, as you know that we have finished the chapter Discovering Tech, the saga continues. In the previous lecture we have already completed, and I will send the PDF of question answer along with this video. And now children, in today's lecture we are going to start the new chapter, that is the chapter is the landscape of the soul from your prose section. So in today's lecture we are going to start this chapter, and first we will know about the introduction and summary of the chapter story, whatever the summary is, and then after the summary and after this introduction and summary of the chapter we will we will do the explanation of the paragraphs, as I am always doing for you through notes. So I will explain the paragraphs after the introduction and summary of the chapter, that is the landscape of the soul, written by landscape of the soul. The chapter's name is Landscape of the Soul, written by Nathalie Trauvario. So Nathalie Trauvario, and this chapter, first we will know about the summary and the introduction. First we know introduction and summary, and then I will explain the paragraph. Okay children, so let's start the chapter. So children, let's start the chapter with first with the introduction to the lesson. So as you know that we are going to start the new chapter from the prose section, that is the Landscape of the Soul, written by Nathalie Trauvario. And the chapter is about how different the Chinese art form is from the European art form. The writer uses two stories to make a contrast. And European art is about reproducing an actual view, whereas Chinese art is about not creating a real landscape. European art is an artist's way to let viewers how exactly what he wants them to see in the landscape. And Chinese art is the artist's spiritual and inner voice, where you can travel from any point, and it lets the viewers creates a path for their own imaginations. So in this chapter, this is the introduction of the writer contrasts two forms of landscape of the soul, written by Nathalie Trauvario, and by using two different stories. So the chapter starts with the story, an old Chinese story tale. And in the China during the 8th century, the Tang Emperor Xuanzong commissioned a painter. He commissioned a painter named Wu Daozi, and Wu Daozi to decorate the wall in the palace. And then upon seeing the wall painting, and the emperor started noticing the outer appearance of the painting, but the painter drew his attention to create a cave at the foot of the mountain. And when the painter Wu Daozi finished the painting of the wall with different paintings, different pictures and images, then he has hidden his painting behind a screen so that only emperor could see the painting, not everyone. Not other people could able to see the painting, so he has hidden his painting behind a screen so that the emperor could only see the painting. Now after when painter told the emperor to see the painting, then the emperor admired, and he has seen, admired some beautiful things in that painting. And the emperor admired forest, high mountains, waterfalls, clouds, men on hilly paths, and birds in that painting. So he liked that painting very much, and he admired all these things depicted in the painting, carved in the painting. But the painter Wu Daozi wanted to show something different to the emperor. He wanted to draw his attention towards a cave which he has painted in his painting, and he wanted to show that cave to emperor. And he told the emperor, and he showed the cave to the emperor. The painter told the emperor that he would take him inside the cave. And then the painter drew his attention to the cave at the foot of the mountain, and then the painter told the emperor that he would take him inside the cave. Then the painter entered the cave, and the entrance closed behind him. As soon as the painter clapped his hand, the painting on the wall was gone, and so was the painter. And so he showed the emperor a cave which he has carved in the painting, and he told the emperor that there was a spirit dwells in the cave. So he wanted to show the cave to the emperor, and he told the emperor about the dwelling of the spirit in that cave. And then after he entered the cave, and the entrance closed behind him, and as soon as the painter clapped his hand. And then after what happened, after telling the emperor about the cave, the painter clapped his hand, and the painting on the wall was gone, and so the painter also gone. And the cave opened after clapping his hand. The cave opened, and he asked the king to lead the way. And then what happened? Door closed behind the painter, and the painting as well as the painter Wu Daozi vanished. And or you can say that were gone. And so it is believed that that was the last painting of the Wu Daozi, and from then nobody has seen the Wu Daozi ever in this world, and that was his last presence in the world, and that was his last painting also of Wu Daozi. So Wu Daozi and his painting both vanished from the scene. So in another story, children, contrast the story, or you can say that another famous one about a painter who would not draw an eye of dragon, as he feared that dragon would fly out of the painting. So this is the most famous representation of Western style painting, and it is one of the most beautiful and fine representation of Western style painting from this story. And then it is to represent a very fine and very symbolic representation of Western style painting in this story, where the painter would not draw an eye of dragon, as he feared that the dragon would fly out of the painting. This is a very symbolic and realistic representation of the Western style of painting depicted in this story. Now children, in another story, there is another story in the chapter to represent a European art form. That is a master blacksmith in 15th century named Quentin Mestres falls in love with a painter's daughter. And the father of the daughter did not approve of him because of his profession, because he was a blacksmith. And the blacksmith sneaked into his painting studio and then painted a fly on the painter's latest panel. Then what happened then? Then the fly seemed so real when painter came in the studio, and then he saw the fly. And then what happened? He tried to hit the fly, but the fly seemed so real that the painter tried to hit it first before realizing that it was in the painting. So what happened after that? the painter accepted him as a trainee in his studio, and he was very much he was impressed by his painting, so real, that he has painted the fly so realistic, and so he accepted him as a trainee in his studio. And the blacksmith also married the painter's daughter, and later became one of the famous painter of his time. So children, the story in this another story where I told you about a master blacksmith who falls in love with the painter's daughter, and the father did not approve him because of his profession, because he was blacksmith. And the blacksmith one day blacksmith sneaked into his painting studio and painted a fly on the painter's latest pattern. And when he came into the studio, then he saw the fly, and the painter tried to sweat it away, and he was sweated away, but the painter tried to hit first, because before realizing that it was in the painting. It means the fly seemed so realistic that the painter tried to hit it first before realizing that it was a painting. Then after that, the painter was very much impressed by his work, and then the Quentin, the name of the painter, the father's name is Quentin. Then Quentin was, sorry, not father of the girl, the Quentin who loves his daughter, Quentin. And then Quentin was appointed, and the painter was impressed by the work of Quentin, and the Quentin appointed as an apprentice. You can say that the painter accepted him as a trainee in his studio. And then what happened? Then what happened, children? The blacksmith, after accepting him as a trainee in his studio, the blacksmith married the painter's daughter, and later his painting became one of the most famous painting, and he became one of the most painter of his time. So children, these stories revealed as how art form is believed to be followed in two different regions in the world. You can see the difference between Chinese and European paintings. That in Europe, what happened? What is happening in Europe? What happens? An artist wants the viewer to see a real viewpoint by borrowing his eyes. The art must be perfect and must be illusion, likeness. But in China, whereas in China, the artist does not paint a real one, but uses his inner and spiritual voice to create an abstract piece. And the viewer can enter the painting from any point and can travel according to his own imagination. And the artist wants the viewer to enter his mind and create a path of its own. But in European painting, the painter wants you to see only what he wants, and he chooses single point of view. But in Chinese painting, more abstract cannot be explained, and he depicted his experience of inner life and spirit. And then there is an active, and he wants his viewer to become an active participation of in the painting, and it means that the viewer can enter the painting from any point of and can travel according to his own imagination. And the artist wants the viewer to enter his mind and create a path of its own. But in European what happens in European art? An artist wants the viewer to see a real viewpoint by borrowing his eyes, and the art must be perfect and must be illusion, likeness, and also the painter wants you to see only what he wants. कहने का मतलब है कि चाइनीज़ पेंटिंग में स्पिरिचुअलिज्म और स्पिरिट की ज़्यादा उसमें स्ट्रेस पेंटर देते हैं, उनका आर्ट उस पर ज़्यादा स्ट्रेस करते हैं. एंड चिल्ड्रन यूरोपियन पेंटिंग्स है, उनकी जो थीम होती है वो फिगरेटिव रियलिस्टिक होती है, और उसमें होता है कि पेंटर्स जो चाहते हैं वो व्यूवर से अपने कि वो वही लैंडस्केप या पेंटिंग में वही चीज़ देखें जो उस लैंडस्केप में या उस पेंटिंग में डिपिक्टेड है. यानी अगर माउंटेन्स है, बर्ड्स हैं, हिल्स हैं, रिवर्स हैं, वाटर्स हैं, या इस तरह की चीज़ें अगर पेंटिंग में हैं, या तो वो अपने पॉइंट व्यू ऑफ एक सिंगल पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू वो डेवलप करे और उसी पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से उसी पेंट को वो वही देखे जो पेंटर उनको दिखाना चाह रहा है या जो उस पेंटिंग में वो देख रहे हैं। तो वो ज़्यादा मोर फिगरेटिव रियलिस्टिक पेंटिंग पे स्ट्रेस करते हैं। जबकि चाइनीज़ पेंटिंग जो होती है, फ्रॉम दी स्टोरीज वी कैन ड्रॉ अ कंपैरिजन बिटवीन चाइनीज़ एंड यूरोपियन पेंटिंग्स की जो चाइनीज़ पेंटिंग में एब्स्ट्रैक्ट्स कैन नॉट बी एक्सप्लेन्ड, मोर एब्स्ट्रैक्ट होता है दैट कैन नॉट बी एक्सप्लेन्ड, और उनको लगता है कि जो वीवर्स का होता है उनको कोई सिंगल पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू पे स्ट्रेस नहीं करते हैं। वो कहते हैं, उनके कहने का होता है, वो ये चाहते हैं कि उनके जो वीवर्स हैं, जो देखने वाले उनके पेंटिंग को जो एडमायर करने वाले हैं, उनका पार्टिसिपेशन बहुत एक्टिव हो और वो किसी भी पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से इस पेंटिंग को देख सकते हैं, या अपना पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू जो है अपनी इमेजिनेशन से उस पेंटिंग को वो जो है वो देख सकते हैं, उसको एडमायर कर सकते हैं, उसको अप्रिशिएट कर सकते हैं। एंड द आर्टिस्ट वांट्स द व्यूअर टू एंटर हिज माइंड एंड क्रिएट a path of its own imagination and create a path of its own. So children, the whole concept of Chinese landscape, the whole concept of Chinese painting is called, you can say that, ki shan shui. The whole concept of the Chinese painting, Chinese landscape is called shan shui, which means mountain water. And it depicts the theme of inner, mental, and the painting is, it depicts a theme, deals with inner and a spiritual, a conceptual space, which is expressed with the concept called shan shui. That is, the shan shui means mountain water, or you can say that the water mountain. And when they are used together, they make the word landscape. They represents the word landscape, and the landscape, and this is the name, and the landscape of the soul. And the concept of shan shui, children, the water mountain, or mountain water, represent the picture of landscape of the soul, because landscape is the painting and soul is the symbolic thing which represents the inner, mental landscape, spiritual and conceptual space. The landscape is the painting which shows the inner self, which shows the spirit, which shows the divinity of the soul, which shows the spirituality of the soul. So the whole concept and this concept of the depiction of divinity of soul in the painting is expressed as shan shui. And shan shui, it means the water mountain, and when they are used together, they make the word landscape of, they make the sentence, they make the title landscape of the soul, which is the title of a chapter also. Now children, as I told you, the concept, this concept is expressed as shan shui. I told you about the concept of shan shui, and this concept of landscape with the inner and divine soul is expressed as shan shui. And shan shui means the water mountain, mountain water, and literally mountain water, which used together represent the world, what I told, landscape. And more than two elements, and now it also represents the Chinese art, the Chinese concept. This concept is also expressed the Daoism point of view. So more than two elements, and according to the Daoist, and first I tell you what is the meaning of Daoist. Now Daoist is the, you can say that it is a Chinese philosophical tradition of, it is a Chinese philosophical tradition of view. It is a Chinese philosophical traditional view that is called Daoism, who talks about the spirituality, who talks about the Brahman, who talks about the whole Brahma, who talks about the whole universe, who talks about the spirit lies in the Brahman, the spirit lies in the universe, who talks about the spirituality, who talks about the divine spirit. It is a traditional point of view of Chinese Daoism. So the whole concept, this whole concept of shan shui, literally what I told, mountain water, which used together represent the word landscape. And according to the Daoism point of view, more than two elements of an image, these represent two complementary poles. That is the and it complementary poles, and it reflecting the diest view of the universe. And that those complementary poles are the mountain, which is represent as young, a young, which is muscular form, which is in the muscular form, and which reaching vertically towards the heaven, and which is stable, and with the mountain, the young, which represent the mountain, and which represents as mountain, and which is muscular, it vertically, it reaching vertically towards heaven, and which is stable, warm, and dry. So the mountain is young, which reaching vertically towards heaven, and which is the mountain is stable, the mountain is warm, the mountain is dry in the sun, and while the water is yin. Water is yin, which is feminine in gender, and which is horizontal and resting on the earth, and it is fluid, moist, and cool. So the interaction of the yin and the interaction of yin in the receptive feminine aspect of universal energy and its counterpart yang, which is active and masculine, is of course a fundamental notion of a Daoism. So here you can say that and in this concept, middle void is very necessary, because Daoism believed that there is a middle void in the universe. And you can observe middle void in the pranayama in yoga also, in which you breathe in and you breathe out, and in between breathe in and breathe out there is a middle void, and that middle void is very necessary to feel the silence, to feel the divinity in yourself, to feel the silence in yourself. So that middle void is also very important in the Daoism. So the middle void is also very necessary. It is also very essential in the concept which is expressed as San Shui, is also very important, necessary according to the Daoism point of view, which is a traditional Chinese point of view, philosophical and traditional point of view. So this middle void is very necessary, and it has a great importance of white unpainted part in the Chinese landscape. And mostly in the Chinese landscape painting, children, you can see that most of the part is unpainted, and that was mostly painters, or the Chinese painter, when they used to paint the painting, they used to left some part unpainted, white, and to represent that middle void, to represent the space which is called middle void, which shows that middle void is the place where you can feel the divinity in yourself when you breathe in, when you breathe out. In pranayama, you can also realize this thing in pranayama. When you breathe in and breathe out, there, and between breathe in and breathe out, there is a space, there is a middle void, and you can feel the realization of divinity, silence in yourself. Same thing is depicted. The same thing is happened in the landscape of the this San Shui and the concept of the Chinese landscape, where the middle void is very necessary, and the Chinese painter used to left the unpainted part in his painting to show this middle void, which is necessary, which is essential to feel that divinity, to feel that presence of a spirit, that presence of spirituality in yourself. So the interaction of this yin and yang, the yin, which is receptive feminine aspect of universal energy, and its counterpart yang, that is active and masculine, is of course a fundamental notion of a Daoism point of view. In fact, children, you can say that this is the middle void is an essential third element, the middle void, where their interaction takes place, interaction of yin and yang. The interaction of, according to the Daoism point of view, philosophical point of view, the interaction of yin and yang, that is feminine and masculine, takes place in the middle void. So it is very essential, and this can be compared with I told you just now, this can be compared, this interaction, this middle void can be compared with the yogic practice of pranayama, where breathe in, retain, breathe out. The suspension of breathe is the void
where meditation occurs. And the middle void is essential, so nothing can happen without it. Hence, the importance of the white unpainted space in the Chinese landscape, which shows this middle void, which is where the interaction of yin and yang takes place. So, this is the concept of middle void. Why middle void is necessary in the why middle void is very necessary? Because it is the place where interaction of yin and yang takes place. So children, the middle void is very necessary, very essential, and middle void is the place where interaction of yin and yang plays, and where a man finds an important role. Because according to the Taoism point of view, man is the channel of communication in the space between heaven and earth. And which are the heaven and earth, and which are the two poles of the universe. The heaven and earth are the two poles of the universe. And here the man's presence is essential. It is not being lost or suppressed due to high peaks, but he is the eye of the landscape. So this is the concept where middle void, I told you that what is middle void. That middle void is how the man finds the middle void. You can say that now it is where the interaction of yin and yang take place, and this can and also children, where the man finds an important role. And according to the Taoism philosophy, man is the channel of communication in the space between heaven and earth, which are the two poles of the universe. And man's presence is essential. It is not being lost or suppressed due to high peaks, but he is the eye of the landscape. Man is the eye of the landscape. And man's presence is necessary, and man is the eye of the landscape. Now children, there is another concept given in the chapter, the concept of art breadth. Now this concept of art breadth is propounded by the French painter Jean Duffet in 1940. In 1940, a French painter, Jean Duffet, propounded the concept of art breadth. So children, what is art breadth? I'm telling you what is art breadth. The art of you can say that it is a developed art breadth. The art of it is the art of untrained visionary. It is untrained visionary, and from its almost beginning, outsider art has gradually become the fastest growing area of interest in the contemporary and internationally. It is given in your book already. So art breadth is the you can say the art breadth. You can say you can say about those painter who are untrained. The art of untrained people who are untrained artists who and also the art breadth was the concept in which you can say that art breadth are those painters who are untrained artists, and who have not trained, who have not gained any training from anywhere in the field of art, in the field of painting, and they were untrained artists, and they have no right to call themselves, and they have no right to call themselves as artists. Yet they are untrained artists, but they show artistic talent, but they are good in art, they are good in painting, and they have artistic talent, they have artistic capability, they have the capability to draw the painting, to sketch the painting, to make a portrait. And so although they are untrained artists, but they have tremendous huge artistic talent in the field of painting, in the field of art. So those untrained people, those untrained artists, you can say that come under the category of art breadth. And that people create and that art created by the people outside the professional art world, because they are not professional, though the art breadth are the artists are the people, are the artists who are not professional. The artwork people who are untrained artists are not professional because they are not they are not, they are untrained artists. So they are called artbred. Artbred people are the painters, are the, you can say about the painters who are untrained artists, but they show their artistic talent, but they know how to draw, how to sketch, how to paint the portrait. They have tremendous capability, they have tremendous talent of artistic to become an artist. Artbred people, artbred artists, you can say about those artists who are untrained and yet show artistic talent. Children, you can take the example of people of artbred. You can take the example of Nek Chand, who is 80-year-old, and he was a creator, director, and is now hailed as India's biggest contributor to the outsider art. Because artbred is, you can say that artbred is the you can say that artbred is something like outsider art, because the people, the artists have not any training in the field of art. So 80-year-old Nek Chand, who is now hailed as India's biggest contributor to the outsider art, which you can say that artbred also. And also the UK based magazine 2005, the 50th issue of 2005 of Raw Vision, that is the magazine of UK in 2005. And the Nek Chand, which is now called India's biggest contributor of the outside artbred, is the most famous, is the best example of the artbred. And the 50th issue of UK based magazine, that is called Raw Vision, and it is the magazine is pioneer in outside art publication. It features Nek Chand and his rock garden sculpture, which is based on the theme of women. And he has carved the whole garden Women by the Waterfall, based on the theme Women by the Waterfall. So he has beautified the garden on the theme based on beautified the garden with the sculptures of women, and the theme is Women by the Waterfall. So how he made the garden? He made the garden with stones and recycled material. And he is untrained genius. He is untrained artist. Yet he showed his talent. By carving, after carving the garden in Chandigarh, which is known as raw garden. So this is the example of artbred. This is the artbred. This is the example of artbred. You can say that artbred in another sense, in another example, in another word, you can say artbred is an outsider art. And Nek Chand, which has made the rock garden made of sculptures of women, made up of broken bangles and recycled materials, with broken bangles, stones, and recycled materials. So this is the example of artbred. So this is the example of artbred. Artbred and Nek Chand, who is now welcomed as India's biggest contributor to the artbred or outsider art. So children, the rock garden featured by Nek Chand and the rock garden sculpture, as I told you, that the rock garden sculpture and that was carved or made by Nek Chand, and the theme was Women by the Waterfall. And on its 50th anniversary cover of the US based magazine, that the Raw Vision, that magazine featured Nek Chand and his rock garden on its front page with the theme Women by the Waterfall. So this notion of art bread, this idea of art bread or raw art was of work that were in the raw state as regards culture and artistic influence. Anything and everything from a tin to a sink to a broken down car could be material for a work of art. Anything like broken bangles or any wastage material can be recycled for a work of this art. Something like Nekchand has made. And then what recognizing his art, whose art? Nekchand's art, as an outstanding testimony of the difference a single man can make when he lives his dream. The Swiss Commission of UNESCO will be honoring him by way of a European exposition of his work. So this 5-month interactive show, Realm of the Nekchand, beginning October, will be held at leading museum in Switzerland, Belgium, France and Italy. So this is the what you can see that Nekchand has made. Nekchand has made a magnificent history, a magnificent place in the field of art. And he did not get any training. He was untrained artist, but he has made a history in the field of art. So what Nekchand says in The Last Children, that the biggest award is walking through the garden and seeing people enjoy my creation. That is the statement of Nekchand, and he says that although I got many appreciation, although I got many rewards and prizes and applause and clappings, but for me the biggest award is walking through the garden and seeing and watching the people enjoy my garden. यानी कहने का मतलब था कि नेचंद एक अनट्रेंड आर्टिस्ट होते हुए भी उन्होंने अपने आर्टिस्ट होने का हुनर दिखाया, और वो उन्होंने कहीं ट्रेनिंग नहीं ली थी बच्चों, लेकिन उनके पास एक इमेंस टैलेंट था आर्टिस्ट का, और उन्होंने अपने इसी आर्ट को यूज़ करते हुए उन्होंने चंडीगढ़ में रॉक गार्डन जो है वो बनाया। और रॉक गार्डन जब उन्होंने बनाया कि वेस्ट मटेरियल से, टूटे हुए बैंगल से, कार के जो है पुर्जों से, उनके टुकड़ों से, और बहुत सारे ऐसे वेस्ट मटेरियल था जिसको यूज़ करके उन्होंने वो रॉक गार्डन बनाया। और वो रॉक गार्डन एक स्कल्पचर्स, वुमेन की जो स्कल्पचर्स तैयार किया और वो थीम रखा वुमेन बाय द वाटरफॉल, और उसको यूएस मैगजीन ने अपने फ्रंट कवर पे यानी फ्रंट पेज पे उसको जो है वो पब्लिश भी किया। और उनका जो उन्होंने जो है इतनी ख्याति, इतनी पॉपुलैरिटी, इतनी होने के बाद भी उन्होंने कहा कि मेरा सबसे बड़ा जो इनाम है वो ये है कि रॉक गार्डन में घूमना और लोगों को मेरी कृतियों को आनंद से यानी इंजॉय करते हुए देखना, ये मेरे लिए सबसे बड़ा रिवॉर्ड है। जबकि मुझे बहुत सारे ऐसे अवार्ड मिल चुके हैं, लेकिन मेरे लिए सबसे बड़ा अवार्ड यही है कि लोग मेरी कृतियों को देखते हैं और पसंद करते हैं। Children, this is the introduction as well as the summary of the chapter, and I have explained each and every point of the story chapter. So you can read the paragraph on your own, and I have covered all the explanation of all the paragraphs in this lecture. So you can read the paragraph and chapter on your own, and I have already explained each and every part of the paragraph. So children, we will stop here, and in next lecture we will start our new chapter. So take care of yourself and family. Goodbye.